I can't date a woman who earns less than me. It's embarrassing. I was sitting on the edge of my bed when I read it, a cardboard box from my office resting near my feet. Inside were the quiet remnants of a job I had lost just hours earlier, a coffee mug, a notebook, a framed photo I couldn't bring myself to look at because my hands were still shaking. That same morning at 9:03 a.m., I had been called into a conference room. My manager was there. So was someone from HR. The tone was careful, professional, final. The company was restructuring. My entire department was being eliminated. 2 months of severance. Clear out my desk by the end of the day. By 10 a.m., I was unemployed. By mid-afternoon, my boyfriend had decided I was no longer worth staying with. He didn't ask how I was holding up. He didn't ask what my plan was. He didn't wait for me to finish explaining. He sat across from me instead of beside me, arms crossed, eyes calculating, like he was evaluating a risk he no longer wanted to carry. And the cruelest part? He didn't know what I hadn't told him yet. 2 weeks earlier, I had already accepted a role as department head at a competing company. A real promotion, a 40% salary increase, full benefits, a signing bonus, a position that reflected years of quiet work and steady competence. I had planned to tell him that night. I had imagined explaining that the layoff wasn't a disaster, but perfect timing, that I'd received severance on top of everything else, that this wasn't a fall, it was a launch. But he never let me get there. All he saw was the word unemployed. 6 weeks without a paycheck. 6 weeks of instability. And that was enough for him to walk away. 6 weeks later, my name appeared in a widely shared industry announcement. My new title, my new role, a public post celebrating expansion, leadership, and growth. Colleagues congratulated me. Recruiters reached out. People suddenly remembered my value. At 6:47 p.m., my phone buzzed again. It was him. Proud of you. Maybe we rushed. I stared at the screen for a long time, feeling something unexpected. Not anger, not heartbreak, just clarity. Because some people don't leave when you fail. They leave when they think you're about to. And the best revenge isn't proving them wrong. It's letting the truth catch up when you've already moved on. I'm 35 years old, and until very recently, I truly believed I was in a stable, grown-up relationship. Not dramatic, not flashy, just solid. We had been together for almost 3 years, living together for one. We weren't perfect, but we were functional, respectful, or at least that's what I thought at the time. My boyfriend was ambitious, sharp, and extremely image-conscious. He worked in pharmaceutical sales, earned well, and liked being known as someone who was doing great. I admired his drive. I never felt threatened by it. In fact, I respected how focused he was. I believed we were building something where two independent people supported each other's growth. I worked in operations management at a mid-sized logistics company. My job wasn't glamorous, but it was steady. I was good at it. I managed teams, optimized processes, solved problems quietly and consistently. My salary was decent, not spectacular, but enough for a comfortable life. And for a long time, that seemed to be enough for us. We met through mutual friends at a small gathering. He was confident, engaging, the kind of man who knew how to command attention in a room. I was calmer, more reserved, but grounded. He liked to joke that I was the stable one. At the time, I took that as a compliment. The first year was easy. Weekend trips, cooking together, watching shows on the couch after long days. We moved in together after about 2 years, and it felt like the natural next step. We talked about the future in vague but reassuring ways. No rush, but direction. No pressure, but intention. Looking back, there were signs I ignored because nothing seemed urgent enough to challenge. The way he liked to talk about success as if it were a scoreboard. The way he'd casually compare himself to friends, colleagues, even strangers. The way he'd say things like, people judge you by who you're with, as if relationships were part of a resume. Sometimes when conversations turned to money or career trajectories, his tone would sharpen just slightly. Not enough to start a fight, just enough to make me feel like I needed to reassure him that I was doing fine, that I was on track. I didn't realize I was already defending my worth. He liked introducing me as my girlfriend who works in operations, but rarely mentioned what I actually did. I noticed it, but I brushed it off. Not everyone knows how to talk about logistics. I told myself I was being sensitive. When I got approached by a recruiter about a potential leadership role at a competing company, I didn't tell him right away. Not because I was hiding it, but because nothing was finalized. I wanted to wait until it was real. When the offer came through 2 weeks later, I accepted it quietly. Department head, significant raise, a real step forward. I planned to tell him once everything was officially signed. I thought it would be good news. I thought we would celebrate. I didn't know that, to him, my value had an expiration date measured in paychecks. And I didn't yet understand that the foundation of our relationship wasn't partnership. It was optics. The cracks didn't appear all at once. They spread slowly, quietly, in ways that were easy to excuse if you didn't want to look too closely. Over the months leading up to the layoff, I started noticing how often money and status slipped into our conversations, even when they weren't the topic. If we went out with his colleagues, he'd mention his commission numbers casually, like an aside that somehow always landed in the center of the table. When someone asked what I did, he'd smile and say, "She works in operations," then quickly redirect the conversation back to sales targets or promotions. At first, I told myself it didn't matter. I was secure in my work. I didn't need validation from strangers. But there was a subtle shift in how he looked at me when discussions turned to income or advancement. Not disappointment exactly, more like calculation. His friends didn't help. A few of them made jokes about power couples and keeping up, comments framed as humor but carrying an edge. One night, after dinner with another couple, he said, "They're really leveling up together," in a way that made it sound like a standard we were quietly failing. I asked him once, lightly, "Do you feel like I'm holding you back?" He laughed. "No, of course not. Don't be dramatic." But he didn't answer the question. When I mentioned stress at work, he'd listen, but his responses were pragmatic to the point of coldness. "That's why you need to be strategic. You can't afford to plateau. Stability only matters if it leads somewhere. Stability only matters if it leads somewhere." Those words stuck with me, even though I didn't fully understand why at the time. I also noticed how his support shifted depending on outcomes. When I handled a big project well, he was proud. When I mentioned obstacles, he became distant. It was as if my struggles made him uncomfortable, like they threatened the image he carried of us as a couple who was always moving upward. I started keeping things to myself. Not intentionally. It just felt easier than watching his expression tighten whenever life got messy. Around the same time, the recruiter conversations intensified. Interviews, strategy calls, long discussions about leadership and growth. I was energized in a way I hadn't been in years. For the first time, I could see a clear path forward. I wanted to share that excitement with him. I imagined his reaction: surprise, pride, maybe even relief. But something held me back. A small voice reminding me how quickly enthusiasm turned into judgment if circumstances didn't look perfect. So I waited. And in that waiting, I unknowingly gave him space to reveal something important: that his support wasn't unconditional, that his love came with metrics, that in his mind, partnership wasn't about weathering uncertainty together. It was about maintaining an image. I just didn't know yet how brutally that belief would surface when things stopped looking stable for a single afternoon. The day everything collapsed started like any other weekday. I woke up at 6, made coffee, and opened my laptop while he was still asleep. The apartment was quiet in that early morning way that usually made me feel calm. Instead, my chest tightened when I saw the calendar invite sitting in my inbox. 9:00 a.m. Please make time for this meeting. No subject line, no explanation, just my manager's name and a conference room. I'd been in corporate long enough to know what that meant. I went into the office trying to stay steady, telling myself not to spiral. At 9:03, I walked into the conference room. My manager was already there. So was someone from HR. They didn't waste time. The company was restructuring. My entire department was being eliminated. They thanked me for my contributions. They offered 2 months of severance. They asked me to clear out my desk by the end of the day. By 10 in the morning, I no longer had a job. I packed my things slowly, moving on autopilot. Coworkers avoided eye contact. A few hugged me awkwardly. By 2 in the afternoon, I was driving home with a cardboard box on the passenger seat, my mind still catching up to reality. Here's what no one else knew. 2 weeks earlier, I had accepted an offer to become department head at our company's biggest competitor. Better title, 40% salary increase, full benefits, a signing bonus. The only reason I was still technically employed was because my start date wasn't for another 6 weeks due to contract timing. I was going to give notice in 3 days. The layoff actually meant I'd get severance on top of everything else. I thought the timing was perfect. I planned to tell my boyfriend that evening. I imagined sitting down, explaining the full picture, maybe even laughing about how strange the day had been. I thought we'd celebrate. When I got home around 2:30, he was working from home on a video call at the dining table. I waved quietly and took the box into the bedroom, sat on the edge of the bed, and tried to breathe. 20 minutes later, there was a knock. "Hey," he said, stepping inside. "You're home early. What's with the box?" "I got laid off this morning," I said. He stared at me, processing. "You're unemployed?" he asked. "As of today," I replied, "but I need to tell you something." "Oh my God," he said, sitting down in the chair across from me instead of beside me. "This is bad." "It's actually not," I started. "I already have something lined up." He interrupted. "You already have interviews?" "No," I said. "I already accepted a new position." He blinked. "Wait, you accepted a job before you got laid off?" "Yes, I was going to tell you tonight." "Where?" he asked. I told him the company name. His expression changed immediately. "Their competitor?" he said. "You were going to jump ship to their biggest competitor?" "It's a major career move," I said. "Department head, better pay, better title." "When do you start getting paid?" he asked sharply. 6 weeks, but I have severance, savings, and a signing bonus. We're fine." "We're not fine," he said. "I'm fine. You're unemployed." "Only temporarily," I replied. "And when I start, I'll be making more than I was before." "How much more?" he asked. I told him. He did the math in his head. "So you'll be making more than me," he said flatly. "Yes," I answered. "That's what a promotion is." "And right now," he said, crossing his arms, "you're making nothing." "Right now I'm making severance," I said, "which is actually more per week than my normal paycheck." He shook his head. "I need to think." He left the room. An hour later, he came back. "I think we need to talk about us," he said. My chest tightened. "This whole situation made me realize something," he continued. "I can't be with someone whose career is unstable." "Unstable?" I said. "I just got promoted to department head." "But today," he said, "you don't have a job." He pulled out his phone, typed something, and turned the screen toward me. "I can't date a woman who earns less than me. It's embarrassing." That was the moment I understood everything. And that was the moment our relationship ended. I didn't cry when he showed me the note on his phone. I didn't yell either. My body went still in a way that scared me more than any outburst would have. It felt like something inside me had quietly shut a door and locked it before my mind could catch up. "Are you serious right now?" I asked. Even though his posture, his tone, the careful distance he kept between us had already answered that question. "I've been thinking about this for a while," he said. "I need someone established, someone stable, someone I can depend on." "I am stable," I replied, my voice steady, despite the pressure building in my chest. "I just told you I have a new job starting in 6 weeks, a better one, with more pay." "But you don't have it yet," he said, "and until you do, you're unemployed. I can't introduce you to my friends and colleagues as my unemployed girlfriend. It reflects poorly on me." That word, reflects, landed hard, like I wasn't a person he loved, but a mirror he used to look successful. "So you're breaking up with me over optics?" I asked. He hesitated just long enough to make it worse. "We're not on the same level anymore," he said. "Maybe we never were." Something in me snapped. Not loudly, not dramatically, but cleanly. "Get out," he said, gesturing around the room. "This is my apartment." "It's mine too," I replied. "Then I'll leave," he said, already reaching for his keys, as if he'd rehearsed this part. I grabbed my laptop bag, my phone charger, and the box from work. The items felt heavier than they should have, like they carried the weight of 3 years I was suddenly supposed to forget. As I walked past him, he called my name, but I didn't stop. I didn't trust myself to turn around. I drove straight to my best friend's place and asked if I could crash for a few days. He didn't ask many questions, just handed me a spare key and told me to take the guest room. That kindness nearly broke me. That first week passed in a fog. I told my friend the basics. Laid off, boyfriend dumped me the same day, but I didn't mention the new job. I wasn't ready to talk about it yet. Part of me felt foolish for not telling him sooner. A bigger part realized it wouldn't have mattered. He'd already decided who I was based on 6 weeks of uncertainty. When I went back to the apartment to collect more of my things, I made sure he wouldn't be there. On the kitchen counter, he'd left a note. "I think I overreacted. Can we talk about this like adults?" I left the note exactly where it was. That night, lying in my friend's guest room, I asked myself the question I'd been avoiding all day. What did I miss? And for the first time, instead of blaming myself, I started to see the answer clearly. The days after the breakup didn't slow down the way I expected them to. They sped up. Messages came from everywhere, not all at once, but steadily enough that I couldn't pretend this was something private anymore. At first, it was logistics. Who was keeping the couch? Who was taking over the internet bill when I could come by to get the rest of my things? I answered those messages only. Short, factual, emotionless. I refused to be pulled into conversations about us while my nervous system was still trying to understand what had happened. Then the tone shifted. He started asking questions that weren't really questions. Have you found anything yet? Any leads? Are you interviewing? I replied once. Yes, I have something lined up. Where? He asked. You'll find out eventually, I said. That answer irritated him. I could feel it even through text. He wasn't used to not having access to information about me, especially information that might affect how he felt about himself. A few days later, my new employer emailed to confirm my start date and invited me in for an informal meet and greet with the team. I accepted immediately. I needed something solid to hold on to, something that wasn't soaked in rejection. The visit went better than I expected. The team was sharp, curious, respectful. The office felt energized. And before I left, the CEO pulled me aside. We're excited to have you leading this department, he said. We're planning to announce your hiring publicly as part of our expansion press release. You're coming from our main competitor, and that sends a message. I hope you're okay with some visibility. I shrugged. Sure, whatever helps the company. At the time, I didn't think much of it. Meanwhile, my ex's messages became more emotional. I think we should talk face to face. This whole thing feels like a misunderstanding. I was under a lot of pressure that day. Pressure. The word irritated me more than it should have. Pressure to maintain an image. Pressure to be admired. Pressure to never look like you chose the wrong partner. I ignored everything that wasn't practical. A week later, I moved into my own apartment. Small, quiet, mine. I slept better almost immediately. There was no tension in the air, no feeling that I needed to justify my existence or my trajectory. That's when mutual friends started reaching out. Carefully worded messages. Neutral tones. He's been saying you hid your job situation from him. He feels blindsided. He says you manipulated the timing. That's when I realized something else was happening. He wasn't just hurt, he was rewriting the story. According to him, I had withheld information to make him look bad. According to him, he'd been reacting to deception, not revealing his values. According to him, the breakup wasn't about money, it was about trust. I didn't argue publicly. I didn't post anything. I didn't defend myself loudly. I waited, because I knew something he didn't. The truth was about to become very visible, and when it did, I wanted my silence to speak for itself. The night everything finally hit me wasn't dramatic. There was no screaming, no breakdown, no moment where I collapsed onto the floor sobbing. It was quieter than that, which somehow made it worse. I was alone in my new apartment, sitting on the floor with my back against the couch because I hadn't bought a coffee table yet. The room smelled faintly like cardboard and cleaning spray. My phone was face down beside me. For the first time since the breakup, no one was texting. No logistics, no accusations, no fake concern. Just silence. That's when the questions came. What if he was right? What if I should have told him sooner? What if I really was unstable, just for that moment? I replayed the scene in the bedroom over and over. The way he sat across from me instead of next to me. The way his voice hardened when he asked when I'd start getting paid. The way he typed that sentence out like it was a prepared statement. I can't date a woman who earns less than me. It's embarrassing. I realized I hadn't just lost a relationship. I'd lost the version of myself that believed love was something you earned by staying impressive. That thought broke me. For the first time, I cried. Not loudly, not in a way that felt relieving. Just tears sliding down my face as I stared at nothing, mourning the years I'd spent quietly measuring my worth against someone else's expectations. I thought about all the moments I'd minimized myself to keep things smooth. The times I'd softened my achievements so he wouldn't feel threatened. The times I'd reassured him that I was fine where I was, even when I wanted more. I had been shrinking without realizing it. And then the fear crept in. What if this happens again? What if every relationship turns into a performance review? What if love is always conditional? That was my lowest point. Not the breakup, not the layoff. This moment, alone on the floor, questioning whether I was lovable without momentum, without success, without proof. I stood up and walked into the bathroom, turned on the light, and looked at myself in the mirror. My eyes were red, my face was tired, but I didn't look weak. I looked human. And standing there, something shifted. I hadn't failed. I hadn't been rejected because I wasn't enough. I had been discarded because someone couldn't love without feeling superior. That realization didn't erase the pain, but it gave it meaning. It reminded me that what hurt wasn't the loss of him. It was the loss of the illusion that being chosen meant being safe. I went back to the living room, picked up my phone, and turned it face up. No new messages. For the first time, that felt like peace. The turning point didn't arrive with a dramatic decision or a long speech. It arrived quietly the next morning, while I was standing in my kitchen, holding a mug of coffee I barely tasted. I realized I wasn't waiting anymore. Not for an apology, not for an explanation, not for him to suddenly understand me. I had been waiting for permission to move on, and I didn't need it. That same day, my new employer sent over the final draft of the press release. It was more detailed than I expected. My name, my background, my new title. A quote from me about being excited to lead the department through a major expansion. They planned to publish it on their website, share it across social media, and distribute it to industry publications. I read it slowly, line by line. This wasn't revenge. This wasn't strategy. This was simply my life continuing. I approved the release without telling anyone it was coming. The next morning, it went live. By noon, it had been picked up by multiple industry blogs. By late afternoon, it was circulating through LinkedIn, Slack channels, and professional group chats. My phone lit up with congratulations. Old colleagues reached out. Recruiters sent messages. People who hadn't spoken to me in years suddenly remembered my name. I felt proud, but not in the way I used to. Not desperate, not performative, just grounded. At 6:47 p.m., my phone buzzed again. His name. Proud of you, maybe we rushed. I stared at the message for a full minute before responding. You weren't embarrassed to text an unemployed woman? The typing dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then the message vanished. A few seconds later, another text came through. Can we please talk? I made a mistake. I didn't hesitate this time. You didn't make a mistake, I wrote. You made a decision based on what you value. I'm just respecting it. I was scared, he replied. I overreacted. You have to understand the pressure I was under. The pressure of having a girlfriend who was unemployed for 6 weeks, I wrote. Yeah, that must have been unbearable. Don't be like this, he said. We were good together. We were never good, I replied. I was convenient until I wasn't profitable enough. That's not fair. Neither was dumping someone the day they got laid off without listening to the full story. He called. I declined. He sent a voice message asking me to listen, saying he'd panicked, saying he hadn't meant what he said about money, saying he was worried about our future. I listened once. Then I deleted it. That was the moment I understood my power wasn't in what I said back. It was in what I no longer needed to explain. The truth had already done its work, and I was done carrying the weight of someone else's fear. The fallout didn't arrive all at once. It spread the way rumors do, quietly and unevenly, until the shape of the truth became impossible to ignore. The day after the press release went live, I started hearing things through other people, mutual friends, former colleagues, even acquaintances who had no business being involved. Apparently, he'd been telling anyone who would listen that I'd manipulated him, that I'd hidden my job situation to make him look heartless. According to his version, he hadn't dumped me because of money. He'd reacted to deception. When a friend sent me that message, my stomach tightened, not because I was afraid, but because I was tired. I didn't want to argue my own reality into existence. So I sent her screenshots, the note he'd shown me on his phone. I can't date a woman who earns less than me. It's embarrassing. The timestamps, the sequence, the context. Feel free to share facts if it comes up, I wrote. That was it. I didn't blast him online. I didn't defend myself publicly. I didn't explain anything beyond the truth. And once the truth was available, the story changed on its own. People stopped asking questions. They stopped defending him. They stopped repeating his version. Because it's hard to spin a breakup that happened the same afternoon someone got laid off, especially when the words are written out in black and white. He didn't like that. He texted me again, angrier this time. Did you seriously send our private messages to people? I sent facts to one person who told me you were spreading lies, I replied. If you're going to rewrite history, I'm going to preserve it. You're being vindictive, he said. I'm being accurate, I answered. There's a difference. That shut him up. A few days later, my start date arrived. The first day was intense in the best way. Meetings, introductions, strategy sessions. The CEO took me to lunch and talked through his vision for the next 2 years. I felt engaged, respected, challenged, energized in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. Life moved forward. He didn't. In my second week, my phone buzzed repeatedly during a planning meeting. I ignored it until we wrapped up. 7 messages, increasingly desperate. I saw you at the coffee shop downtown this morning. You looked right at me and didn't say anything. Are you really going to pretend I don't exist? This is childish. We shared 3 years together. That has to mean something. I deserve a conversation. I'm coming to your office. Please don't make me do this. I called him immediately. Do not come to my office, I said. Then meet me somewhere, he pleaded. Anywhere, please. No. Why are you being so cold? Because you dumped me at my lowest point over something that wasn't even real, I said, my voice steady. And now you want back in because the optics look good. I'm not interested in being your career accessory. That's not what this is about, he said. Then what is it about? I asked. Silence. Long silence. I made a mistake, he finally said, his voice small. You made a choice, I replied. People make mistakes. People live with consequences. This is yours. I hung up. He called back 3 times. I blocked his number. And for the first time since the breakup, the noise stopped completely. The fallout had landed where it belonged. Not on me. On the person who confused love with leverage. It's been 3 months since I started the new job, and my life feels steady in a way that has nothing to do with numbers on a paycheck. The department is performing ahead of projections. I've been invited to speak at an industry conference next quarter. My calendar is full, but my mind is quiet. That's the difference. Last week, I ran into him at a professional networking event. Our industries overlap, so it was probably inevitable. I saw him from across the room before he saw me. He hesitated, then started walking toward me. I turned and walked the other direction. He followed me outside. Are you ever going to talk to me again? He asked. We're talking right now, I said, calm, factual. You know what I mean, really talk. There's nothing to say. He told me he was in therapy, that he was working on his issues with self-worth and how he tied his value to financial status, that his therapist thought he sabotaged us because he was afraid of vulnerability. That's good, I said. I hope it helps. I want to try again, he said, the right way this time. I looked at him, really looked at him, and felt absolutely nothing. No anger, no longing, no regret. I don't, I said. Why not? Because you showed me who you are when things got hard, I replied. And I believe you. People change, he said. Maybe, I answered, but I'm not interested in waiting around to see if you do. He nodded slowly, like someone finally understanding a lesson too late. I really did care about you. I'm sure you did, I said, just not as much as you cared about how I made you look. He walked away. I went back inside and had 3 productive conversations about potential partnerships. Life went on, exactly as it should. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not hurt. I'm grateful. Grateful that he showed me his values before we got married, before we bought property together, before children turned a bad choice into a permanent one. He did me a favor, even if he delivered it in the cruelest way possible. People ask me if I would take him back if he truly changed. The answer is no. Not because I'm holding a grudge, but because I know my worth now, and it's more than being someone's status symbol. If there's a lesson here, it's this. Love that depends on optics isn't love. Partnership that collapses at the first sign of uncertainty was never partnership at all. Choose the people who stand beside you when the ground shifts, not the ones who step away to protect their image. I didn't lose a relationship, I gained clarity. And that clarity changed everything.